Welcome back. I'm Randy Bueller, joined by Bob Maher, getting ready for round 7 of the Legacy Champs. Got a couple of nice matches in the feature match area this round. We are down to I believe it's 5 undefeateds and then a couple of XO1s at the top of the Swiss. But we went down to the X1s. We've got Stu Summers versus Ross Merriam this round. A couple of guys have been putting up results. Both of them have had good results, both on the open circuit and then also at the Pro Tour level. I believe Stu had a Pro Tour top 16 last season. You know, Ross had the deck that kind of defined the Pro Tour coming in. I mean, the Green-Black Devotion deck that everyone was kind of building their Pro Tour decks to beat in Honolulu was Ross's deck, and everyone sort of absolutely gave him credit. So Ross is on an Elf deck. You know, Virtual Ranger, Heritage Druid, Nettle Sentinel, the works. Stu Summers, I see the first card on the deck list. There's a little bit of spice here. Eidolon of the Great Revel. It's the first card on his deck list, yeah. I mean, then it goes Monastery Swiftspear, but yeah, this is mono red, just this is boss Sligh essentially.
Goblin Guide,
Swiftspear Guide, Searing Blade. There's just a bunch of burn. Whew. Wow, yeah, a dozen creatures and then just burn them out. I always want to call these decks Dead Guy Red. I don't know if it's just me dating myself. I guess it's boss Sligh nowadays. Funniest thing. Sorry. Stu is playing. Let's call it boss Sligh, I guess.
Yeah, and then
we'll go with
Ross
boss Sligh.
Elves.
I saw a guy, one of the funniest interactions I saw at Grand Prix Los Angeles. There were 2 of these boss Sligh decks in Standard in the top 8, right? They actually played in the semi. And somebody saying, why do they call it boss Sligh? And I watching this conversation. It's like, well, there's this guy, Tom Ross. You know, they call him the boss. And like a year ago, he invented the Sligh deck.
Yeah.
It's like, not actually how it worked. There's this guy named Paul Sligh in the 90s. Anyway, yeah, long history of red decks winning things with various names and various titles.
Yeah, I have to mention, while I was off on the break, I realized, you know, I don't know exactly what all the cards do. I was talking with Brian David Marshall about how Valakut works, and I thought it was 5 mountains.
Oh, you have to have the 6th mountain to trigger them, right?
It's 5 other mountains.
Got it.
So, yeah, everything I had to say when I kept saying, well, I must
Why doesn't he just win?
No, I must be missing something, because this is not what I would do here. No, indeed, I was missing something, and it didn't work.
All right. Ross Merriam leads. Green Sun Zenith. God, that's what that card was. Goes and gets the Dryad Arbor. Wow, this matchup cannot be good for Elves, can it? Searing Blaze, Chain Lightning, Rift Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Lava Spike.
Actually, the fact that there's no Forked Bolt, I think, helps a lot.
That's a fair point.
Like, this deck is actually trying to get a couple creatures down and then burn you out at the end.
And it's not like it's Searing Blood, right? It's Searing Blaze.
Attention, Magic players.
There's Volcanic Fallout in the sideboard, which is going to be pretty powerful, but...
Well, that's going to be incredible, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you're right, though. There's no card advantage there.
10 minutes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong, because there's a lot of burn in general, but when you're talking about Price of Progress and Fire Blast, it doesn't necessarily control the early creatures. I mean, it's got a bunch of things there, Lava Spike, whatnot.
So we've seen the Delver decks just try to kill all the Elves. You think Stu just says, kill your face?
It's what it's looking like.
That was Lightning Bolt to the... No, Lightning Bolt's the Dryad Arbor.
That still seems okay for Elves. I mean, it's not optimal, but...
Attention, Vintage Trial players.
About a Quirion Ranger.
Round 5 are being posted. Vintage Trial players, your pairings for round 5 are being posted.
I'm trying to figure out why the Volcanic Islands.
Flusterstorm in the sideboard. And why not? It's not like you're running Price of Progress. He is, in fact, running Price of Progress. He just does not care.
If the life totals are that close, something's already gone terribly wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, Stu Summers did finish 12th at Pro Tour Born of the Gods. When's the last match we had where there were no treasure cruises involved? Have we had no treasure cruises on either side?
See, I just figured the people watching at home were happy we just weren't going to mention Treasure Cruise once.
I ruined it. But I'm reveling in the complete lack of them. It has to help.
Well, here we go. We get to see if it's going to be committing threats to the board, burning creatures, ignoring creatures.
Swift Spear. Yeah. Now kill your guy. Take 2. It's got to be right to kill elves for at least the first couple of turns, right?
It seems like it must be, but I mean that's not right now. That might not even necessarily being a mana producing elf. He has another land in hand.
Right.
I mean, Quirion Ranger. I mean, I think you still have to get it out of the way, but...
Sorry, I figured out the other thing the blue is for. There's actually treasure cruises in the boss Sligh deck.
Of course there is. I could throw a couple of volcanics in here. We won't go with the full 4 treasure cruises.
Just
trim
3.
It back a little bit.
I was so excited, sort of. I blame Stu Summers' handwriting. It's my story. I'm sticking to it.
We're just going to ignore it and pretend they're not there.
Okay. See if you don't think they'll matter this game. I think killing the elves is a much better play when you can then reload, for the record.
Yeah, I think killing the elves is absolutely not close when you have treasure cruises in your deck. You know, it probably isn't close to begin with, but...
Green Sun Zenith for 2. Ross Merriam has assembled Elvish Visionary Wirewood Symbiote. Dryad Arbor doing good work, powering up Gaia's Cradle. I mean, if Ross gets to untap, he can be quite happy.
Yeah, a couple creatures, or 3 creatures, Cradle. Just putting some things together. I think this is exactly why the Fork Bolt in the Delver decks makes such a big difference. Looks like a Goblin Guide.
They still exist?
They do exist.
I guess you can play them alongside Swift Spear. There's an elf on top of Ross's library. No free land. Yeah. Wirewood Symbiote makes the block pretty free there. Block and pick it up. Ooh. Eidolon of the Great Revel. Now that can do some damage. How does Elves win through Eidolon? It basically doesn't, right? Does he? I mean, Deathrite, hypothetically. I don't know that you can go off. I guess he can natural order into something giant.
Yeah, like Craterhoof Behemoth. I mean, he does have the Cradle out already. But
yeah, I mean, there's no splash in the main.
No.
Sideboard has Cabal Therapy, Thoughtseize, Abrupt Decay. There's Abrupt Decays in the board, not in the main deck.
That's devastating, right there.
Maybe we won't be doing any cruising.
I think he's going through the same thought process we just went through.
Oh, Eidolon.
Eidolon. What in the world do I do about an Eidolon? You might have to tank for a little while to find a line to go after here.
I mean, he had a natural order. He could just go get a giant behemoth. Then maybe. That's all I got. He doesn't have a natural order to get the behemoth. It's pretty tough. Certainly, glimpse from nature, play a bunch of elves is not the winning line versus Eidolon.
No, I don't.
Vintage Trial players, your new.
I mean, are you hoping to get some Deathrite Shamans on the board that you can untap?
Wow.
Glimpse. Well, we're gonna find out. He says if I'm ever gonna bolt myself in the face over and over, it's going to be this turn.
Ow. That's 2. All right, tap this. Visionary. Ow.
Quit hitting yourself. Quit hitting yourself.
Draw for the Glimpse, draw for the Visionary. I mean, hypothetically, Elves can win via beatdown, right? You can sometimes get enough Elves into play that you can just attack your opponent, but it doesn't seem like he's anywhere close to that.
I mean, he hasn't hit a land drop yet this turn, right? So if he just drops Cradle and Craterhoof Behemoths, does that do anything?
Cradle is for 5 right now?
5, yeah. Like just natural order out to Craterhoof Behemoth?
I mean, I think that's the line he came up with.
I mean, he can...
It's like, if I'm ever going off, I gotta do it now.
Untap his land, so he'd have 2 creatures in play without... Oh, never mind.
Wow. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I mean, I think that was probably the right play. Just take a bunch of damage and see how far I can get. Because if he can get to Craterhoof Behemoth, he could have definitely left a mark in Stu Summers' life total.
Left a mark, had an untapped creature or 2.
I mean, in the
couple of effects
the symbiote could have attacked as well.
Yeah, right. The land, the symbiote, the Craterhoof Behemoth, it has
the
haste
Arbor
as well, right?
Yeah. Craterhoof has haste.
Yeah,
and then the 2 creatures that were in play at the start of the turn.
It would have been a lot of damage.
Natural order on top of the library.
Vintage Trial players, thank you again for your patience.
Eidolon attacked.
Welcome to round
That's one way you can kill it.
One way to get it off the board.
50 minutes.
Yeah, don't you just snap off a block? Like, shove everybody in front of that thing.
Well, it's not a jackal pup. Let's not get carried away.
Well, I don't want to get my creature burned. Like, if you block it with 2 1/1s, he's going to kill one of them.
If you block it with all 4 creatures, you might be dead. And he's not even blocking it with enough to kill it.
Really? Really? Huh.
This seems like crazy talk.
It's 2/2, right? We're not being idiots, are we?
Does it have first strike?
No.
Double strike?
No, he just blocks and uses the symbiote. Uses the symbiote on the not the Visionary, but the other one, the Heritage Druid.
Oh, Heritage.
So Swift Spear connects for 1. Visionary dies. And Eidolon lives.
I'm having a flashback to me saying less than intelligent things about a Valakut. So I'm sure he's got a plan. Let's just wait and see. I don't know. His opponent's going deep in the tank. Like, how does this work?
I mean, if Ross loads up a block, if he loses too many creatures there, then this guy's Cradle gets turned off. He loses his route to victory, I guess. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Second Eidolon.
Wow.
Things looking pretty good for Stu Summers here.
I mean, this feels like one of those situations, like, I'll tell you what, you can draw any card in your deck. How do you get out of this?
He basically gets to cast 1 spell. The 2 Eidolons on the other side of the board. Every spell other than... I guess you can natural order is...
You can natural order.
You can natural order.
You can natural order this turn and next turn if you live.
You can hard cast Craterhoof Behemoth. That one's legal. Hard to do.
And what does a behemoth cost? All of the manas?
7, I think. Maybe 8. I think it's 5 GG. 5 GGG maybe?
Draft number 8.
Might be 8.
Please come up to the side events table. Once again, if you have signed up for KTK draft number 8,
just all the mana.
please come up to the side events table.
There's 4.
Thank you.
Natural order something.
Sure. Sack a creature. Go get, presumably, Behemoth.
I don't even know.
Craterhoof Behemoth. Alright, which gives everybody +3/+3.
So whatever, take it.
Eidolon has to get in the way. It's at so much damage that Eidolon has to get in the way. It's 4, 8. That was Xaxes if he didn't block. Okay. Yeah, 8 +4/+4.
Fair.
Now Stu's crackback is not quite lethal, but
He has things to do now.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes 2 less from the Eidolons. His opponent is untapping awfully fast.
well, I mean,
Looking
Ross
at how many cards in his graveyard. Is he going to boat?
boat Eidolon is kind of hilarious.
It costs 1, but it costs 8.
You only paid 1. No, really, it doesn't. It costs 8. Somehow the Eidolon is much better friends with Treasure Cruise than the Dark Confidant. Dark Confidant is convinced it costs 8.
Yes.
They're not friends.
It's not listening to reason. So you can say what you want. 8.
All right, here is Treasure Cruise.
That is indeed why it's greatness at any cost.
Glad you got that in. I don't know how Ross wins from here.
Right, he's at 2. He can't cast anything small. Unless it's lethal. See, shows what we know. Elves had this game under control the entire time.
Wow. Second Crater Hoof Behemoth.
Ah, Behemoth.
Crazy. Eidolon at the Great Revel, no problem.
See? I have no idea what's going on in these games. None.
No, we spent that game talking about the Crater Hoof Behemoth. That was what he had to come up with. He had to come up with natural order for Crater Hoof Behemoth. And, I mean, I think Ross was right. He glimpsed of nature, saw how far he could get, saw how many creatures he could get into play. I still can't figure out, like, the turn where he's blocking, where the Eidolon has turn tapped and is attacking. I mean, I think that Ross knows that he's going to win with Crater Hoof Behemoth, so he prioritized keeping creatures in play higher than killing the Eidolon. Because every creature he keeps in play is just a 4/4 attacker when he summons the Crater Hoof. And thanks to Goblin Guide, he actually knew that he was about to draw Natural Order. That was the card that the Goblin Guide revealed.
Yeah, Goblin Guide did reveal the Natural Order. He was right. I still would have been very tempted to trade the 2/2 for the Eidolon.
Right, he went with 2 different blocks and picking up a creature rather than a gang block. I mean, I think there he's trying to make sure he doesn't get burned out. I know Ross played that game super well. Like I said, we both thought he was dead.
Yeah.
And at the end, it was like, oh, all of a sudden Stu can't attack, and Stu can't cast spells.
Yeah, he knew he was going to lock him out.
Crater Hoof
Got to leave that
serious
Eidolon on the
work.
board so he can't bolt me.
That was a great game win for Ross.
That was fantastic. And that's one of those times when you're on camera when it hurts to lose. You think you're way ahead and you're like, oh, what happened?
I had 2 Eidolons versus the Elf deck. How did I lose?
Yeah.
Well, see,
Yeah.
there's this Natural Order card.
Yeah, that sticks with you.
What do you think? Sideboarding does to this matchup?
So I think Abrupt Decay helps a lot for the Elf deck.
Yeah, it seems like it would.
Scavenging Ooze also, I feel like it would help. But
You don't bring in any of the Cabal Therapy package, right? You probably do bring in the one Progenitus. This seems like a matchup
Yes.
where Natural Order for Progenitus is just good.
yeah, I think you bring in the Progenitus. But
Stu does have a couple of Grafdigger's Cages in his sideboard.
and some Volcanic Fallouts.
Yeah, the Volcanic
Are
Fallouts seem
incredible.
amazing.
But
Grim Lavamancer is probably good. It's only a 1/of, but it seems like a good one.
But what do I know? I had no idea he was winning that game until it was over.
What's that? Yeah, I think the only card Stu can cast without... If he Treasure Cruises into a Fire Blast, then maybe.
Yep. Treasure Cruise into Fire Blast. All of these things that say they cost more than they really do.
Yeah.
Legacy.
I wonder, was Stu's attack wrong? Because he knew about Natural Order. Like, Goblin Guide reveals Natural Order, and then Stu just...
No, if he doesn't attack, like all these creatures are just left on the board.
I mean, does he need to keep maybe one more of them back? I don't know. You're right, though, that every creature that he chooses not to attack with just gives Ross the ability to keep stuff alive.
Yeah, I think
I mean, the way that played out, I think Stu's best play is to have Ross gang block the Eidolon. Honestly, I think we're just wrong to want to gang block the Eidolon.
I'm well convinced we're wrong on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's...
But if Ross does take the tempting double block, he's down another creature that's less damage the Crater Hoof can do.
But I mean, you don't have to double block, right? He had a 2/2 creature, didn't he?
No, he didn't have... The only 2/2 is the Nettle Sentinel, and he didn't have one.
Oh, okay.
That was a cool game.
Hey, that was a great game. I mean, it's not often you get to watch somebody charge headlong into an Eidolon. Like, Eidolon, really? Glimpse of nature. Okay, let's do this.
That really was a let's do this moment.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's every card just punching himself in the face.
Right, he went from 17 to 7. He played 5 spells that turn, or maybe 4 spells.
Enough.
Glimpse, creature.
Yeah, he fire blasted himself a couple times. But he got there.
It's at least 4 cards, maybe 5. Yeah, if he'd come up with a Cradle, he could have done a natural over Crater Hoof Behemoth that turn,
Yeah,
too.
right there.
New legend rule. I will choose to keep the untapped Gaia's Cradle, lose the other one. Have you gotten to do that yet? With like an Academy?
Well, it's hard to have many decks with multiple academies.
I've been playing weird formats. I've done it with, if you play like historical standard decks, you can do it with like the standard legal academy deck from like those 3 months does it.
Yeah.
It's good times.
Playing historical standard with the historical mistakes. Yeah, well done.
We got to see which one's better. Or that is worse. All right, off to the races. Stu leads with, is it Cage?
Yep.
Yeah, Grafdigger's Cage. Turn off your natural orders. Goblin Guide on turn 2.
We get the glimpse of glimpse.
I kind of think that was a top deck. You lead with Goblin Guide rather than Cage, right?
Boy, I have a tough time making value decisions in this matchup at this point, but I think you have to. I think the only reason to play Goblin Guide is to attack with it early and often. At every opportunity.
I mean, your opponent did, I think, show you Bayou. So he could have, Thoughtseize your Cage. But he can also just have
if you're worried
Reclamation Sage your Grafdigger's Cage.
Yeah, if you're worried about your opponent doing 2 to themselves to get the cage out of your
Right. Yeah, that's why I think the Goblin Guide was off the top, even though I didn't say it.
But stranger things have happened.
Yeah, Reclamation Sage takes out Grafdigger's Cage. Natural orders are live again. And you also have a 2/1 body that you can just trade with Goblin Guide here.
Yeah.
The Reclamation Stage is a 1 of in the sideboard, but it's pretty much perfect right here.
Yeah, I don't even know if that Goblin Guide's coming in. Well,
I think your opponent has Gaia's Cradle in their deck, so you attack and trade.
Yeah, one of the more awkward Goblin Guides I've seen in a long time.
At least it didn't hit a land, right?
Yep, it didn't give his opponent anything. And now there's the creatures
Turn
in the
3
yard
go.
where he can start eating creatures and gaining life.
Wirewood Symbiote joins Deathrite Shaman. Shaman gets mana for Elvish Visionary. Visionary Symbiote is on board.
Here we go.
Well, we'll see if Stu lets the Visionary resolve. No, sir. Volcanic Fallout as a response. Does manage to kill the Symbiote. Oh, is this a response to the... He let the Visionary resolve?
And put the draw on the stack.
put the draw on the stack. So Ross chose to keep the Deathrite Shaman and not the Visionary. I guess if your symbiote's dying, the Visionary has a lot less value.
A lot less, yeah. And we know he has a Glimpse in hand, so I think there's just a huge priority on 1 mana creatures, period. Whoa!
Fire Blast to set up Treasure Cruise. Wow, just turn 4, Fire Blast your face.
You are at too many lives. Let me take some of those.
I mean, I want 3 cards in my graveyard.
Yep. And I've got some mana floating. At least 1.
That's hilarious. That's how good Treasure Cruise is. That's how much Treasure Cruise has warped this metagame.
Yep.
Fire Blast, you're just coming back in.
Goblin Guide. Ooh,
Sees Perchler. Ross down to 9. There's the Birchler Ranger. And a Nettle Sentinel. Alright, and another Nettle Sentinel. And a Glimpse.
Oh boy.
Are we off to the races? Deathrite. So now every creature that he plays untaps the Nettle Sentinels and draws him a card, but he's out of gas.
Fell short.
Close.
Yep. I wonder if he just has another Glimpse.
I mean, he burned that one with only 1 creature in his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have gotten lucky, but with only 1 creature in his hand, maybe.
Well, even if he didn't, we get to glimpse a glimpse.
We got one now. But here's Eidolon of the Great Revel. And Ross, this time, instead of being at 17, as he figures out what to do with Eidolon, finds himself at 9. Abrupt Decay would be quite good here.
Abrupt Decay would be great. Even just something to untap the Deathrite Shaman to just start eating creatures and gaining life.
Yeah, Deathrite mitigates this a bit. But that Glimpse is not happening. Deathrite eats Goblin Guide. Dryad Arbor. I mean, if they just stare at each other, Ross wins, right?
I believe so.
And the Deathrite Shaman is going to do a lot of work here. Natural Order is nuts for Ross. Alright, Stu realizes he's got to do stuff. So, Swift Spear taking 2 from his own Eidolon.
Chain Lightning taking 2 more from his own Eidolon.
Taking 2 more from his own Eidolon, but you got to get Deathrite Shaman off the board.
Yeah.
And this means Swift Spear is a 2/3 potential attacker. Deathrite responds by eating a creature. Ross up to 13. Stu down to 13. Swift Spear attacks as a 2/3. Ross could, in theory, have double blocked, but he's obviously worried about another spell and another prowess trigger. Now what?
Is Stu out of cards? Yeah. Oh no, it's face down on the table.
Now Ross's board position looks not as good. No longer having that Deathrite. Swift Spear is threatening to attack consistently. Eidolons have made these games super interesting, super weird.
Yeah, a lot of decisions.
Update on our back table. Sounds like Reed Duke won the whole match. Yeah, won the whole match. So defeats Jeff Fulhams, and that moves Reed to 6-1.
Well, there's a spell that you don't have to take damage for.
A good one. Stu knew it was scary. He brought in his Grafdigger's Cage. Ross drew the one of Reclamation Sage. And smash. Nettle Sentinel's a 4/4. Craterhoof Behemoth is a
+3/+3, right?
+3. So it's a 5/5, yeah. And an 8/8 Trampler. Wow. 2 different Eidolon games. 3 Craterhoof Behemoths.
Yeah.
Looks like the score may be Craterhoof Behemoth 2, Eidolon of the Great Revel 0. Alright, play a land. Searing Blaze the Nettle Sentinel. Take 3. Ross still on 8, though. Swift Spear just hangs back so it can chump block a Craterhoof. I mean, you do what you gotta do. Yeah, it has Trample, though. Can't even chump block it.
No idea.
Doesn't it have Trample?
Maybe not
There's
in
the
this
handshake.
world. Yep.
Craterhoof Behemoth 2, Eidolon of the Great Revel 0.
Yeah. Wow. I thought that Eidolon was going to be way better in that matchup.
Did not work out. I mean, it gets Glimpse of Nature and a bunch of cheap elves. It seems like, I mean, it made sense to me, too. Stu Summers is less like, Windmill Slam, here's another one. What you going to do about this?
Let's crush you. That's the answer.
Yeah, Ross is like, no problem. I got this. Wow. I hope we get an interview with Ross. That'd be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah.
Just Ross. And which who we would love to talk to. Yeah, let's see if we can get Ross bought over.
Yeah, I mean, that was great. I mean, he did exactly what he needed to do. Just 17 is too much anyways. Let's fix this.
Playing against the burn deck? Not worried about it. That was fun.
It was a lot of fun. I'm just still blown away. Like,
turns out there've been a lot of cards printed in the 20 some odd years of Magic. 15,000 of them. How many of those do you think are shown up here today? How many are in the room? 455 players. Ooh. Number of distinct Magic cards. What's your over under?
Oh, this is just a wild guess.
Sure. It's a 4-digit number, right?
I don't know. Like, most decks only play high-end, like 20 distinct cards. Sometimes it's 15.
Yeah, maybe it's
Sometimes
not. Maybe it's not
less.
1,000. There's certainly easily 1,000 cards that are viable in Legacy.
Yes, yeah, I certainly. And there might be more than 1,000 registered. I mean, you need a lot of diversity for that, but you get one guy to play a Battle of Wits deck, and it goes a long way.
Yeah, you're done. Battle of Wits deck has got like 150 uniques all by itself, right? Probably not 150.
Right. Well, I mean,
it might.
It depends on how
With
far
a
he
tutor
wants
package,
to push the battle.
Silver Bullet tutor package in a Battle of Wits deck, totally viable.
Maybe he still wants to be able to battle after a Traumatize or something.
So this guy.
Wow. That was a heck of a match. We'll have to see how he felt about it.
Scooch. Awesome. Welcome.
Hey.
Good job.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well done.
Thanks. That was a tight one. That game won. Man.
Yeah, so your opponent plays Eidolon of the Great Revel.
Right when I had set up for a Glimpse turn.
Yeah, scooch over a little more. You can't be feeling good.
Oh god, no. That was the worst possible card.
So what's the thought process?
Well, I mean, you saw I tanked there for that turn.
We did.
Obviously, it's super important, and I just drew another elf. So I mean, I have a great glimpse turn, and I'm sort of bemoaning the fact that I'm at an even life total, which means I still only have 7 spells to try to kill him. And I figured I need to find a way to kill him. I'm not going to just sit here and take damage from his creatures. If he has just Eidolon in play, I could have stalled by just bouncing Dryad Arbor and replaying it without taking damage. But the fact that he had 2 other creatures meant that I needed to end the game quickly.
Okay.
So I decided to just play out, hope to draw something early, and then pass and kill him with that. And I found a hoof, which I thought might be able to get there, especially if I drew another Cradle, maybe off the Goblin Guide trigger.
Right.
And I passed, and fortunately revealed the natural order to his Goblin Guide trigger, which was pretty perfect. And
Okay. So then he attacks.
Yeah.
And now you know there's a natural order coming. So I guess we didn't know what was in your hand. You have a Crater Hoof, but not enough mana to cast it.
Well, I had enough given my board.
If you keep all your creatures alive.
And so had I not revealed the natural order, you saw my first block, I actually chumped away my Wirewood Symbiote, and that was so I would only need to play 1 more elf to get to 3 for Heritage Druid, because I needed that mana to cast Hoof. But once I saw natural order, I could change my blocks. I can keep the Wirewood around and block differently because I just need the Cradle. And that let me just make a much easier block, save more guys, and the natural order could set up for lethal. When he ended up playing the second Eidolon, though, he had 1 card left in his hand, and I could have gone for lethal that turn by playing an elf from my hand, taking 4, going to exactly 3, and it would have been lethal. But I decided I didn't want to lose to a Fire Blast or a Lightning Bolt. He had a mana out, so a Lightning Bolt does it as well. And so I thought about what would happen if I just natural ordered normally. He'd have to chump block with his thing, with his Eidolon, and then his next attack wasn't going to be very good because I could untap a guy post-combat, and once the first Eidolon is gone, I can play 1 more spell to go to 5. So I get to play an elf post-combat to block and use some untaps. And the elf I actually played was Symbiote, so not really an elf, but one that lets me make more blocks. And so I thought that scenario was better for me. Because he'd have to draw enough burn to kill me, and I put him exactly 2, so he couldn't actually play spell. There's no way I was going to let his other Eidolon die. I could just block that with whatever I'm going to bounce, and then block with the 5/5 on something else.
Did you give any thought to double blocking to kill the Eidolon on that first attack? I mean, that's where Bob and I both had the same first impression, which was kill the Eidolon. Put your deck back the way it's supposed to work.
It's possible.
I mean, your line worked out way better. I mean, I'm convinced you were correct. I'm just wondering about the thought process.
That is a very distinct possibility if I don't reveal natural order again, because then I can extend my hand of elves and set up for maybe a kill the next turn.
Sure.
And so I would have thought about that had I not revealed.
But as soon as you saw natural order,
as soon as you see natural order, you don't need as much gas. 3 elves with natural order is 16, 17 if one of them's nettle, and so the 4th elf is almost always lethal. That brings you over 20, and so you really don't need a lot of elves to kill them with the order. So once I see that, I know I can try to conserve my life total and my board as much as possible and win that way.
So you did do the 1 chump block because you didn't want to go, I guess, from 7 to 5.
I blocked 2 creatures and I bounced 1 with Symbiote.
Right.
And it's just that left me with 3 or 4 creatures in play, and I think I ended up attacking with 3 because he was able to chump to stay alive.
Right.
And then play 1 post-combat, go to 5, have blockers enough for his team, and then I actually cast the hoof from my hand the next turn.
Right.
Yeah.
Super well played game.
Yeah, it was
very impressive.
I'm pretty happy with that one. That one.
I think you should be.
That one went well.
That was very well done.
And then game 2 was also pretty interesting.
Yeah, he. How did that one start?
Well, it started with him going Grafdigger's Cage turn 1, Goblin Guide turn 2.
Yeah.
But you've got Reclamation Sage,
Yeah, Cage was
which
perfect for my hand.
both and trades with the Goblin Guide.
Yeah.
So it sort of started nice, but then we got into Eidolon battles again.
Yeah, and he set up his Treasure Cruise with the Fire Blast.
Exactly.
And he said his Treasure Cruise had 2 lands, and the Goblin Guide he played after Treasure Cruise on that turn, so it wasn't a great cruise for him, just sort of recoup the lands that he didn't need. And so he wasn't really able to apply a ton of pressure early, and I just traded appropriately. I didn't draw a lot of lands, so I had more gas, plenty of gas to spare. And I don't even think it was that difficult to navigate around Eidolon there. I had
Deathrite
Glimpse.
Shaman.
Yeah, Deathrite Shaman. I had Glimpse. I didn't need it because I had natural orders. So
yeah, it felt like you were set up for a Glimpse turn, except he then played Eidolon.
Yeah.
So you're just like, whatever, I'll just sit on Deathrite for a couple of turns, and
then
my life will go up. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually boarded out a couple Glimpses for post-board, which is something that the new versions of the Elf deck really can do pretty aggressively if Glimpse isn't that good. Before, when you were dependent on Glimpse to win, you just had to keep in all 4 all the time. but now it's actually pretty common for me to trim 1, maybe trim 2, depending on their deck.
So what was the field you were expecting here? I mean, tell me about this particular deck choice and what went into it.
I mean, I've been playing Elves for a year and a half, maybe now, and
so you've been playing Elves, whatever the metagame said.
Yeah, I've been playing Elves since last December straight. I had played Sneak and Show before that for maybe half a year. I had played Elves for the half a year before that, which is goes back to right when it debuted at Grand Prix Denver with Matt Nass and LSV and Raptor playing it.
All right, well then I'll get to the question I was actually interested in, which was, tell me about the Blue-Red Delver matchup, because that seems like by far the most popular deck this weekend.
Yeah, that's just the big influx in the metagame. I'm pretty comfortable with everything else, and last week when I played SCG Worcester, I got to play against Blue-Red a few times, and I've been able to think about it since then and devise what I think is a much better plan than what my first instinct was.
Okay.
Because against most Delver decks, all I'm doing is bringing in Decays, and then either Ooze if I think that's good, usually if they're green, so they're using the graveyard, or I'm bringing in a way to kill Jite if they're blue-white-red.
Okay.
And so I'm usually only bringing in those 4 cards, and I can trim like a couple Heritage Druids, because that's the worst elf in the deck. It's bad in multiples, and everybody brings in removal after board, so it's hard to get a really good draw with them. I can shave a Glimpse if I need to. It sort of depends on how they're playing the matchup. It's like Elves is a deck where, because it came up during that extended season in 2008, and Heritage and Nettle were sort of the face of the deck for a while.
Sure.
They are now very overrated cards. There's 2 of the worst cards in the deck.
Sure.
And Glimpse as well now, because Natural Order is so good. So you can encounter people that weigh the cards very differently than what I feel they should be weighted, and I can use that to sideboard differently based on what they're doing. So my sideboard shifts a card or 2 based on what I see.
But you said your first impression about how to sideboard against Delver doesn't necessarily apply to the Cruise Delver list we have now?
Yeah, so the other thing you do against Delver is you trim on the Natural Order package, because they have Stifle, Wasteland, Spell Pierce, Daze, ton of ways to hold your mana down and counter a 4-mana sorcery for value. Okay. And you really don't, so you don't want to draw too many of them, and you definitely don't want to draw your Natural Order targets. So I actually go down to 1 hoof, 2 Natural Order against a lot of Delver decks, and win with Glimpse and sort of grind them out, because you have Decays to deal with their Delvers, and your board can usually blank the green creatures. You can blank Deathrite with your own, because you can untap yours and activate them 3 or 4 times in a turn cycle. You can blank Goose and Tarmogoyf by just blocking and bouncing things with either Symbiote or Quirion Ranger. So those guys are pretty bad, and once you can contain Delver, you usually have a ton of time to just wade through their removal and win with something. And against a lot of them, you just win with an Ooze. You just make like a 9/9 Ooze and kill them with that. The Blue-Red Delver deck is a little different. Yeah. A lot of them have cut down on the Stifle Waste package. Even if they are playing Stifle Waste, they don't have Spell Pierce at all. Right. And they have more removal spells. They sometimes have Fork Bolt. I got Gut Shotted earlier today. They have 4 Lightning Bolts and usually a Chain Lightning or 2 at the minimum. So they are dealing with your board a bit more aggressively, killing your creatures, but not attacking your lands and attacking your mana. And their creatures are much more difficult to contain. Young Pyromancer, unlike Tarmogoyf, like all the 1/1s that makes are very relevant. You can usually just make 4 or 5 of them and then just start attacking, and maybe you can eat 1 with a Deathrite or a Nettle, but they're getting in damage every turn, and it's really hard for you to attack into the wall of 1/1s to race back. So what I ended up doing in the Blue-Red Delver matchup was leaving in all my Natural Orders and actually bringing in a Progenitus, so I can break those board stalls. And it's much easier to resolve Natural Order against them than it is against the previous.
That makes sense.
So the matchup plays out much more like a mid-range deck, like they're playing like Shardless Bug or Jund or Esper, something like that. And although they don't really have sweepers because they can't play them with all their ground creatures, they can't even play Rough Tumble like the old Rug decks had. So without those haymakers, as long as you can develop your board pretty well and keep them off the threats, you're usually in pretty good shape.
Makes sense.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, most Delver matchups are pretty good. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I've picked Elves and I've stayed with it. And I think that one is a little bit worse than the previous iterations of Delver, but not by much. So I still feel pretty comfortable with it. So basically, I'm just trying to dodge Miracles, which is my only loss of the day, and the other fast combo decks. And fortunately, all these Delver decks tend to keep those combo decks down, although maybe people will realize that all these Lightning Bolts and Chain Lightnings they're playing aren't so good against the combo decks, and cutting Spell Pierce might hurt you there. But let's hope it takes them a couple weeks to figure that one out.
You playing tomorrow?
I am PTQing tomorrow, unless I top 8 today, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it turns out that we're playing the top 8 tomorrow morning.
Yeah, because we had a slight delay at the beginning, 10 rounds, so...
Makes sense. Seems like the right call. And I know that, a lot of people are worried about the vintage champs, but if we go quarters at 8, semis at 9-ish. The vintage wasn't scheduled to start until 10 anyway.
Yeah, if you have a
But the
2-hour
PTQ
break.
is at 9.
Yeah, if you have a 2-hour break, you're usually pretty well set. The finals might run into round 1, and they usually deal with that. I mean, SCG's been dealing with that for years, although they recently moved it to a 1-hour gap, which has been problematic. But
Okay.
with the 2-hour gap, you're usually okay.
Yeah, I think it's set up for a 2-hour gap naturally. So
Especially if all the Miracles players lose. then you're all set.
awesome.
Great.
Yeah,
Thanks for talking to us.
no problem.
Good luck in these last couple of rounds.
Yep.
And congratulations on getting through all those Eidolons. You did a better job of it than I think Ranger would have. So well
Yeah, it was really well played.
That's just one of the things Natural Order does. Like just a 4-mana spell that can win by itself. You would think there are tons of cards that you used to hate on Elves, and Natural Order really does a number on a lot of them.
great.
Makes sense.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
Look. We have another deck tech queued up. Oh, we have you did a Manaless Dredge deck tech?
From the person we saw on camera.
Sweet.
Yeah. So
That was a fun
Sullivan
match.
Brophy talking about his Manaless Stretch deck.
Awesome. Let's go watch that. We'll be back afterwards with round 8 of the